Do you remember Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, the Nintendo 64 and Sega Dreamcast pod racing game? Well, what if I told you there was an Episode 2 Racer? Yes, today we're talking about Star Wars Racer Revenge for the PlayStation 2.
Pod racing, back with a vengeance!
Racer Revenge was released in 2002 to coincide with the film Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and Racer Revenge stars Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, even though we never saw Christensen hop into a pod racer in his films. It's weird to think that there were pod racing things released outside of Episode 1. Pod racing is never mentioned in any other Star Wars movie. It's not even revisited in other games. This is a game that presupposes pod racing is a big underground racing circuit, sort of like Fast and the Furious, and the races are run through cities and factories all over the galaxy. This is a game where the winners are honored in Jabba the Hutt's palace, which is strange because 1, I'm playing as Anakin Skywalker trying to earn the approval of Jabba the Hutt. And 2, Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader goes to Jabba's palace, which his son will later do in Return of the Jedi. It's very weird to me. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Now, I like the idea that between his Jedi training and adventures, Anakin still finds time to participate in galaxy-wide racing circuits. Sorry, Obi-Wan, I can't negotiate that treaty with the Trade Federation. I got a race over on Celeste. Now wait a minute. I thought Anakin was already too old to start training with Yoda, so what is he doing? He should be hitting the books to catch up with his peers. Or maybe he's doing this racing gig to put himself through Jedi school. I don't know the finances involved. Now, the Racer Revenge in the title comes from Sebulba. Remember, he's the alien that Anakin beat in the pod race in Episode 1. After being humiliated by a child, Sebulba has apparently spent the last 8 years plotting his revenge on Anakin. It's a weird game. Like the Nintendo 64 game, Racer Revenge is a futuristic space racer in the vein of F-Zero or Wipeout. The vehicles speed through courses on different planets in the Star Wars universe. So if you ever wanted to know what the Twi'lek homeworld looked like, well, here's your chance. As you can maybe tell, I'm playing the PlayStation 4 version of Racer Revenge, even though this game came out for the PS2. I have the PS2 version too, and it looks pretty much the same. It's just darker with lower resolution. And as far as I know, the PS4 version is not like an HD remastered or a conscious up-resing of the PS2 game. Nothing's been tweaked or updated except trophy support was added. Otherwise, it's a straight-up PS2 game running through a PS2 emulator on the PS4. But you can still buy it. You can actually buy it now. It looks great. Even though the background graphics do have a lot of draw in. There are only 8 cars per race, as opposed to the N64's 12 racers, which in both cases is a far cry away from F-Zero X's 30 racers, but that game's an anomaly and 30 racers is ridiculous and awesome, but what are you going to do? Overall, everything feels a lot better than the Nintendo 64 game. The graphics are obviously nicer, but the pod racers control better and the race courses seem better designed. The courses have multiple branching paths and levels of verticality. It suggests the potential for shortcuts, though I haven't really seen any marginal difference based on if I took the high or the low route. Racer Revenge also features a tournament mode that is more robust and has a better character progression system than the original Episode 1 Racer did. Winning races gives the player money to upgrade their pod racer stats in between races, stuff like handling or top speed or defense. Now, a lot of sports games in this era, in the early PlayStation 2 era, allowed players to boost their stats. SSX3, NBA Street Volume 2, Mario Golf Advanced Tour are what come to mind for me. This is a game mechanic that always gets me. I love maxing out my stats and becoming an unstoppable beast on the race course. I prefer it to finding an existing character / car build loadout that suits my playstyle. Now that usually leads me to having conflicts where my equipment may be ugly but really good in the game, or it may look awesome but have really bad stats for how I like to play. I'd rather just use whatever I find most visually interesting and then manipulate my stat points to suit how I like to play. There's a large cast of characters to choose from, and there's even more that can be unlocked throughout the game. Since each racer's stats can be tuned to a player's individual playstyle, after a certain point in the game, everyone pretty much plays the same. Racer Revenge also adds a nefarious sub-goal where the player's cash winnings are multiplied for the number of opponents that are knocked out during the race. The game's pretext for this is that Watto needs spare parts, so he wants the player to wreck other racers and steal parts from their pod racer wreckage, which in the fiction of the game then translates into new parts for the pod racer car, aka stat boosts. It's clever. It's a nice diegetic way to get this done. But basically, he's put bounties out on the other racers to take them out by any means necessary. I like playing to KO opponents because it adds an interesting sub-goal to just winning the race. There's more to do. On a difficulty scale, Racer Revenge is a remarkably forgiving racing game. The player can botch turns, crash into walls, just generally make a mess of the entire race and still win. I've played a lot of racing games that require perfect runs. Make one wrong turn, the race is lost. So being forgiving is fine by me. I came here for a silly pod racing game that I can goof around in, not a seriously realistic racing game. Episode 1 Racer made a big splash, and as far as racers go, it was fine. But Racer Revenge, which I find the superior game, was quickly forgotten. I mean, I remember it being alright when it was released, but it also paled in comparison to Wipeout and F-Zero. But now, they don't make those series anymore. And Racer Revenge is out on the PS4, so it's looking pretty good now. Racer Revenge, it's worth a second look. This is the first game actually I've looked at this show that I've actually really enjoyed. Like, I'm going to go back and play it again. Generally, the games covered on the show are mostly curiosities, mediocre to bad, and I don't really ever want to touch them again. I just find the concept of them interesting. But Racer Revenge is a good game. It's fun. It's the kind of product that makes you think, now, that was a game.
So long, until next time.